Hi, I'm Chad with Move Forward Guitar. This is lesson number 3 in our series, the CAGED system. In the first lesson, I showed you how to use the CAGED system to find one major chord up and down the whole fretboard. In the second lesson, I showed you how the major pentatonic scale fits around those chords. In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to use the CAGED system and find minor chords up and down the whole fretboard. So the first 2 lessons in this series were based around major chords. So in the first lesson I showed you how to find a G major chord up and down the fretboard using the CAGED system, and then I showed you in the next lesson how to find the major pentatonic scale around those chords, and it moves to it works with any key. These are movable chords, you just have to move where you are on the neck, but that's all based around major chords, major pentatonic, and of course songs are built on more than just major chords. You have minor chords, you have other types of chords as well, but major and minor chords are the most common and by far the most common in more popular music. So if you just have major, you're really missing an important part about the CAGED system and what it can do for you, and it's a part that for some reason a lot of people leave out. They teach the CAGED system as major chords and major scale, major pentatonic and all that, and don't seem to mention the minor stuff as often, but it's really important to understand the CAGED system with minor chords and minor scales and everything based around minor as well, and that's really going to open up how useful this CAGED system is for you. So what we're going to do in this lesson, like I mentioned, is use the CAGED system to find minor chords, and we're going to find one minor chord up and down the fretboard just like we did with one major chord in the first lesson. So what we're going to do is start with the open chords again, and I'm going to show you, instead of starting with C major, A major, G major, E major, and D major, we're going to start with C minor, A minor, G minor, E minor, and D minor. So starting with C minor, instead of having the regular C major like we did with the major chords, we're going to have to turn this major chord into a minor chord. It would sound like this. And that's not a very common open chord to use. It's not taught to beginners very often. It's kind of a hard stretch and hard to mete out the necessary strings. But we're going to use this to turn it into a movable chord, which is much more usable. But this open chord's not so important that you learn it. I'm going to show you how to turn it into a movable chord. I just want to show you where the movable chord's coming from. So that's the C minor. The next chord is A minor. So that's A minor, one of the most basic chords you learn as a beginner. The next chord is, again, a not common chord for beginners and not a common chord to play as an open chord, but it's important to see it and be able to visualize where the movable chord comes from. And that's G minor, and that would be like this. And that's kind of a difficult chord to play. It becomes extremely difficult when you turn that shape into a movable chord. So I'm going to show you a simplified version that you can use, and that would be like this. So that's a simplified version that we can use when we move this turn this into a movable chord. So that's the G chord. The next chord is the E chord, which we're in minor, so we're using E minor, and that's just the basic E minor open chord. So that's what we're using for the E in the CAGED system, and you should already know that chord if you're taking this lesson. The next lesson is the D chord, which we're using D minor, so that's the basic open D minor chord, which again you should know that. That's a really common beginner chord. So the 2 that are not common are the C minor and the G minor. The other ones are really common chords that you should already know. So now we have all the C, A, G, E, D as minor chords, and that's where we're going to start to turn these into movable chords. So we start with the C minor, and to turn the C minor into a movable chord, of course we need to move up. I'm just going to move up half a step to make those open strings that I have to fret now, just like we did with the major chords. So now the fingering we would use would be like this. So now I'm holding a C sharp minor chord because I moved up half a step. So I went from a C minor open chord to a C sharp minor movable chord. So I just grab that one open string with my finger now, and it totally changes the way I have to hold this to make it work. So now the way I'm fretting this is my fourth finger, fifth string, fourth fret, second finger, fourth string, second fret, first finger, third string, first fret, and my third finger, second string, second fret. And that's a C sharp minor, but it's a movable chord just like the other major chords that I showed you. So no matter where I move it, my root note is right here under my fourth finger. Now it's a D minor, and so on. I can move it anywhere. Whatever is under my fourth finger is the root note, and that's the name of the chord. But it's always a minor chord, just like with the major chords, they're always major chords. So that's how you turn the C minor into a movable chord. Now we're going to turn the A minor into a movable chord. So this becomes a really basic bar chord that you should already know. But if you replace your second, third, and first fingers with your third, fourth, and second fingers like this to hold the A minor, then you just slide up half a step and replace the two open strings with the bar, then you have this bar chord. Now I'm playing a B flat minor chord using the A minor shape. And that's a really common bar chord that you should know if you're taking this CAGED system lesson. This is one of the first bar chords most people learn. It's one of the easier ones to play. So if I play it here, I'm playing B flat minor. If I move it up, I'm playing B minor. Again, C minor. It's just a movable chord now using this A minor shape, but turning it into a movable chord. So that one's an easy one. The next one is a difficult one. And so we can use a simplified version. That was where we're taking that G minor, which is a very uncommon open chord, and turning that into a movable chord. So instead of starting on G, we're going to start on G sharp, just move it up half a step so we can grab these, turn those open strings into fretted notes. And now if you want to fret it the original way that I showed you, it becomes a huge stretch, and you have a big stretch between your second and third fingers. It would be like this. And that would be my third finger on the sixth string, fourth fret, my second finger on the fifth string, second fret. My first finger is barring the fourth and third strings in the first fret, and then my fourth finger was grabbing the second string, fourth fret. So it's a really awkward, big shape to grab that's not going to be very useful to most people. It's not something you could typically grab very quickly unless you really practiced it, but it's not necessarily that useful of a shape. So to simplify it, we're just going to do what we did when we simplified the open chord. We're just going to put our fourth finger on the sixth string, fourth fret, second finger on the fifth string, second fret, and then bar the fourth string and the third string in the first fret with our first finger, and then mute out the second and first strings. And that's the G minor shape as a movable chord. And right now I'm playing G sharp minor using the G minor shape. Move it up again, that's A minor using the G minor shape, and so on. It's just a movable chord, roots under my fourth finger, so that's the name of the chord. Next one is a really basic one that you should already know. That's E minor open chord. If we hold that with our third and fourth fingers, move up half a step, bar in the first fret where those open strings were. Now I'm playing an F minor using the E minor open chord shape. And that's a really basic bar chord that you learn early on, just like the A minor shape one. So I'm assuming you know this one already. Move it up again, I'm playing F sharp or G flat minor, G minor. Roots under my first finger, so on the sixth string. So that's a common bar chord you should already know, but that's coming out of the E minor shape. The next one is a less common bar chord, taking the open D minor shape. If I replace my first, second, and third fingers with my second, third, and fourth fingers, slide up half a step, bar that one note that was open, which down here was a D note open. Now I'm going to have a D sharp or an E flat that I'm grabbing with my first finger. Now I have a D minor shape bar chord, but right now I'm playing an E flat minor. So that's how you turn the D minor into a movable chord. And it's not a bar chord, you're not barring any notes. It's just a movable chord because there's no open string. So that's E flat minor, E minor, F minor, and so on. Root's under my first finger on the fourth string. So now we've been able to take all the open chords, turn them into minor chords, and then turn those minor chords into movable minor chords. Just like we did with the first lesson, we took all those open chords as major chords, turned them into movable chords. Now, just like the first lesson where you took those caged chords and found all the G chords using them, we can do the same thing with the G minor chords. So if we start and go in order with the C minor shape, because that's the first chord or first shape in the CAGED system, C, we'd have our root right here. That's a G note. So we use this shape. That's a G minor using the C minor shape. The next one is A minor, so that shares the same root. Now we're going to use the A minor shape. Now we have a G minor using the A minor shape. The next one is a G minor, and I'll just do the simplified version where your root note is here on the 6th string, 15th fret. So we have the simplified version like this. So that's a G minor movable chord using the G minor shape. Down here it would just be with open strings, because the 12th fret is the same as the open string, just one octave higher. The next one we have is E minor, so that would start right here with your using the same root note that we did for the last one. This is a G minor movable chord based on the E minor open chord. And then the next one, our root is right here. That's a G note. We're going to do the D minor shaped chord. So this is a G minor based on the D minor open chord. So now we have each of those chords that we can play up and down the neck. You had the G minor based on the C minor shape, G minor based on the A minor shape, G minor based on the G minor shape, G minor based on the E minor shape, and G minor based on the D minor shape. And we could do that for any chord. We could do that in any key. It's just knowing where the root notes are, that becomes the name of the chord. They're all still always minor, just like in the first lesson they were still always major, but the root note determined what they were. So if I played right here using the E minor shape with my root note right there, that's an A. That's an A minor using the E minor shape. So now you can play one minor chord up and down the fretboard using those shapes, just like we did with the major chords. So be sure to move on to the next lesson when you're ready, and also be sure to subscribe because we add at least one new lesson every day.